Another common use for Excel is to combine information from different sources. When it's necessary to look up data in a table, the VLOOKUP is an invaluable function for doing so. VLOOKUP will let you look up a value in a table and return a value from another column of that same table. So let's get started by looking at our raw data table. Go ahead and select the raw data tab. Now here we have a list of companies and their addresses and number of employees. We want to build some sort of form where we can look up a company one at a time and get the address and number of employees. VLOOKUP is going to be perfect for that. For simplicity, we've already made two named ranges. The first one is just called raw data, and that represents the entire table of data that we're going to work with. And the next one is the raw data company, and that just represents column A. That's going to be the column that has the company name, which is what we're going to look up in our VLOOKUP formula. So when we're using VLOOKUP, we're going to pass it the company name to look up, and then the column number that we want to return. And the column number corresponds to the column in our data table. So for example, the mailing address would be column number 2. Mailing city would be column number 3. Mail state, column number 4, and so on and so forth. So let's move back to the VLOOKUP tab and start building our form. Now, we've got a little template here already started, complete with a drop-down list that's been pre-built that has all the company names. So if I click that, you see I can just click on and get another company name right from that drop-down list. So we're going to use that in our VLOOKUP. Let's go ahead and click on B7, and then we use our formula builder to find VLOOKUP. And now down below we get our list of arguments. Well, for the lookup value, that's going to be the company name. So we'll go ahead and click on cell B10. The table array, now here we could go and select the table we want to look up in, or if we have a named range, we can just use that. As you see, Excel recognized that named range because it started putting in values from it to the right. And now the column index number. We just want to use column number 2 to start with. And for logical, we'll make it false. Okay, and we'll explain what that range lookup equals false does in a minute. But as you see up here in our VLOOKUP, we actually looked up, based on the company, the address of that company. So if I click on another company, VLOOKUP automatically picks up the address. Now we actually wanted to put that down in street address, so let's just go ahead and copy that and paste special formulas. And I'll have to reset my company argument. Okay, well, let's go ahead and let's build one for state as well. So let's do the same thing. We'll double click on VLOOKUP, and for our lookup value again is going to be company, and then our table array is raw data. And this time the column index number is going to be 3. We think that's the state. Now remember, whenever I put in enough arguments for the formula to evaluate, the formula builder will give me the result at the bottom. The result here says Taylorsville. That sounds more like a city, so I must not have the right column index. So let's see what happens if I do 4. There we go. 4 returns NC. That's actually a state. We'll go to range lookup as false. And for the last one, number of employees. Let's go over here to the raw data tab again to remind ourselves of what the number of employees is, what column it is. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's column number 7. So we'll build one last VLOOKUP. And column index 7. And now that I've built my VLOOKUPs, I've got a nifty little form here that wherever I click, I can get that company's information just by clicking that drop down. The VLOOKUP will go into that table and look up any of the values for whatever company I choose. Let's look at our VLOOKUP formula again. As you see, we started building that. We had the range lookup parameter equal to false. Let's see what happens when we make that true. And to do so, we're going to scroll down to the next section. Well, now let's come down to this table here where we have some test scores and we want to calculate the actual grade of those tests. Okay, so what we have here is a test score. We want to figure out what the grade is. And down below we have our table that has a grading scale. From 0 to 60, that's going to be an F. 60 to 70 is a D. 70 to 80 is a C. 80 to 90 is a B, and 90 and above is an A. So we're going to try the VLOOKUP formula here and see what happens if we do it the way we know how. And I'll go ahead in my grade box there. I'll go to my formula builder and use the VLOOKUP. This time I'll say lookup value is going to be the test score. The table array is going to be my table of grades and letter grades. And the column index number is 2 because I want to put in the numerical grade and return the letter. And then for range lookup, we're going to do false like we know. Down there the result doesn't show anything. So let's go ahead and hit enter and see what happens. Well, that's an NA. That's because VLOOKUP is looking for an exact match for 85. If I change this to be 80, VLOOKUP finds that it's in the table. 80 is a B. In this example, I could make a table that has every possible test score and have a VLOOKUP on it. I could, but that's kind of inefficient. So what I want to do is go back to my VLOOKUP formula, and I'm going to change this range lookup argument from false to true. And that means you're doing a ranged lookup, and that means that VLOOKUP is going to return the value as soon as it reaches a condition where it's equal, where the number you're looking up is equal to or greater than your lookup value. So here we still have a B for 80, for a test score of 80, but now let's try a test score of 85. That's still a B also. It's not on our table, but Excel saw that 85 is greater than 80, but it's less than 90. So it returned a B. It's in between the two. If I say 95, that's going to be an A. If I say 65, that's a D. So again, the purpose for this is to illustrate that last argument in VLOOKUP. It's where the range lookup is equal to true. That means it will find the closest match possible to what you put in. So the VLOOKUP is definitely one of the most valuable and most used functions in Excel. And it allows you to look up a record in a table and return any field on that same row. It's really useful when you have related information on several different tabs and need to pull data from them. VLOOKUP's also useful in helping us categorize records by doing a ranged lookup.